Well, hey there, YouTube, it's petey twofinger, and I just finished up on this Marshall Governor. I built this in 2019, and it never really worked right. And I found today I got it working, and you know what it was? It was a bad potentiometer. Now, typically I buy parts from Tayda, T-A-Y-D-A. It's a company that sells components like resistors, capacitors, transistors, diodes, integrated circuit chips, all that good fun stuff that we use when we're building guitar pedals. And some people, I've noticed a tendency, as time goes on, people gripe about Tayda and say, they sell fakes. Well, I'm not that guy. I never really got too many fake anything from Tayda. Tayda has always been really good to me, and as a matter of fact, the stuff that I've gotten from other people that was fake when I ordered it from Tayda, I was the lucky one to get the original stuff. So that's my comment on that. But you know, they sell the potentiometers, these little knobby guys, with the part that's inside, not the knob, but the actual volume control. They sell those for about 50 cents. And they have a few different kinds you can get. Some of them are Alpha. This company Alpha they have a good reputation to make a good potentiometer. And then, you know, I'll be on eBay and it'll be like, here's 6 or 10 potentiometers for $2.99, like B100 K-pots. I'm like, man, that's a good deal, because at Tayda they're 50 cents, and 10 for $3 would be 30 cents. So I go ahead and buy those, and I've done this. Well, I've run into at least a half dozen of those budget pots that are bad. And what the symptom is, it'll be a crackle box. It won't make, it's intermittent and it's crackly. So typically, before I ran into that, like I said, it was a long time where I only was getting pots from Tayda. I was getting good ones. And if the thing crackled like that, it meant that I had a problem with the soldering, that there was a cold joint. So, I installed a buffer into this pedal because it's something that I like to do on certain pedals. And I felt that this needed it as well. Certain pedals really benefit from a buffer. Like, how I could explain this is maybe the pedal is used on a pedal board where it has a pedal with a buffer in front of it, so it's buffered, even though there isn't one in this one itself, because of the fact that there's a buffer pedal in the chain that comes before it. It enjoys that benefit. So then if you're like me and you just all of a sudden grab a pedal and plug it into an amp and it sounds like shit, well, that's because there's no buffer in it. So those particular pedals that I would grab, like distortions, that would be the first pedal. Like if I was gonna, let's say I'm gonna just do a little rig, meaning I've got an amp and I want to play guitar through it, and I for whatever reason I'm not going to use a multi-effector, I would want to have a dirt box, I would want to have an echo box, and a reverb. Those are the 3 pedals I would want. And if I'm going to get fancy, I could add modulation, add a booster, add a noise gate, add a compressor. That's getting a little carried away, but the fact is, the time comes often where I just grab like certain dirt box, and so I built, I way back when I first started, I built a little buffer, and I never use it. It was so small it didn't have room for an internal battery. Now I built one with an internal battery, and it's got, when you plug it in, it turns it on, but there's a switch too. So if you have a permanent install or you're playing, you don't have to unplug the cable. You can hit the toggle switch to shut the battery off if you're taking a break. Now, I realize that it's probably drawing like 0.8 current draw, and you know, so how much are you really saving? But that's just the way my mind works, and let me have my own insanity. So the idea of putting buffers inside of distortions or certain pedals, like, you know, with a fuzz, that's really not recommended. With a distortion circuit like this, it's going to give it like 3 more dB. That's not going to hurt, right? I mean, the Marshall Governor is not exactly a high gain tone machine, you know? And I like high gain distortions. That's my thing. So this thing came out pretty good. I like the way it looks. I mean, I put this ugly Sharpie all over. I really don't like that so much, but it's got I like these amber LEDs. In real life, it's you probably can't see it so much, but it's like really orange, but it's not like Kool-Aid orange. It's more like Edison, like what was his name? Nicholas Tesla, that's the guy. Frequencies, it's all about the frequencies. And then Donald Trump's uncle came in and took all of his notes. Did you hear that? So there's this switch here. It's got bass, mid-range, treble, so a 3-band EQ, volume and gain. And I really liked the way this pedal looked until I got in there with the Sharpie. But I could never remember which one was volume and which one was gain, because really, I don't know. I think those should be flip-flopped. If you ask me, I should have those flip-flopped. So really what I like to do is write on the back. And you got to cheat. You got to look on the back to figure out what's what. And with the bad pot in here when it was intermittent, I mean, you should be able to figure out which one's volume and which one's gain by doing some testing. But it's always better to have it labeled, right? I don't know. This thing, it looked so cool without any lettering on it. And then the toggle, you can choose between your clipping. So there is a pair of LEDs, 3mm red LED, and then there's 3 clipping diodes, which is asymmetrical. And that is more pleasant sounding type of distortion. It's supposed to sound more like a tube amp or whatever. I don't know. I did it, and I'm not sure. Like, I've never been able to hear that, like, in testing it. My ears don't work that good. I can't hear the difference. I know it does get a little bit louder. I think the more diodes you add, I think it comes up in volume a little bit. Typically there's a huge deficit between LED clipping and diode clipping. In this case, it's not that much. Like, if you do a mod or have a switch, the LED mode will be way louder. Well, it's not. It's only a little bit of less volume and maybe a little more compressed feeling. Because if you understand distortion, cutting the waveform down, that's another way of looking at it as compression. But it's kind of, to me, that's different than a compressor. You know what I mean? It is different in feel and sound. So yeah, this stuff gets really complicated really quick. Don't always buy the cheapest parts. And when it comes to these pots, the cheap pot deals that you see on eBay, don't get those cheap pots. They say WL on the back of them, and that's the point of this video is, in life, buying the cheapest stuff is one way to go about it, okay? But sometimes you can run it, you'll get burned. You'll get junk. You'll get stuff that breaks. You get stuff that is inoperative, or and that's not always the case. I'm not like top shelf. That's not me at all. I always try to get a good deal. I always try to save money, right, Matthew? And in this case, more recently in the past couple of years, I've just been getting burned one thing after another. And that really sucks when I build a circuit and I'm beating myself up and I got it in the back of my head with, that's the way my mind works, is like, I've got all this stuff on a list to do mentally that I need to do, and then there's this other stuff in the background hanging over me, like, I built that governor and it's not working. You know what I mean? So today was a red letter day, and the point is, hey, Petey, don't buy those cheap pots on eBay anymore. They may be 20 cents a piece cheaper than the ones on Tata, but they don't feel good when you turn them, and they don't work. I've had like literally a half a dozen of these have caused, issues when I build them into a pedal, and the pedal doesn't work right, and then I'm thinking like, oh, it's my soldering, I'm doing all this troubleshooting, and then finally I'm like, you know what? Get me a B100K pot, and I switch it out, and then it's like the thing works like a charm. So that's the point of the video. I did build this EQD Ghost Echo, which is a built-in brick reverb that comes in between 30 and 150 milliseconds of delay. It's got a PT2399 echo chip in it. That's the pre-delay for the reverb. So your straight sound is all unmolested, and then the reverb comes in later. It's really cool. Just sounds phenomenal. Like this built-in brick is maybe what makes it sound, makes this pedal so great. I've never built a reverb pedal. This is my first one, and oh my goodness, is it a wonderful pedal. So I had built an amp. It's a this dude, Dave Tosh, this buddy of mine. We used to go to his house. He'd have these wonderful parties, and the family band would play there. So special thank you to Dave Tosh. He gave me this old, like really beat up crate practice amp with a 10-inch speaker in it. It looks like one of those little practice amps that has like a 6.5-inch speaker. No, it's got a 10. And a really good sounding 10-inch speaker. So I rebuilt that amp with my own electronics in it. And I think this amp sounds phenomenal. It sounds really, really good. Now, I had built this, what it is, it's a, there's a website called Runoff Groove. And they've been around forever. They have guitar effects that they come up with their own circuits. A lot of it's like amp in a box type stuff. And they have this thing called the Tone Mender, which is their EQ. It's an EQ. 3-band EQ with gain. The gain is clean. And I had built one of those into a little box with this chip amp. It's a Class D, a little board you buy from China for like, they used to be $5. They're like 10 now. And it's rated at 100 watts if you give it the right voltage and give it the right ohm speaker. It's a 100 watt. And there's people that have put it on a dyno and tested, and it is what it says. It's not like the old Craco flea market China watts where the what do you call that, peak wattage? 10,000 watts, this little thing with an AA battery in it. Anyway, this amplifier is a crate practice amp that I cleaned up. I sanded it down, painted it orange, and then put that little EQ circuit in there as a front end. So it's got a master volume, a gain, which is clean gain, and then a 3-band EQ. And this little amplifier sounds real good. It sounds phenomenal. Typically, I beat myself up. I got zero self-esteem. I had an abusive childhood, and every once in a while I'll sit back and think like, God damn, Petey, you've really done a lot of shit. You've built a lot of stuff, and you've made a lot of music, and you should be really proud of yourself. So that's one of the things I'm going to be doing is I got a Thunderbird I'm building. It's built. I got to box it up with this Mega Mojo battery pack in there. It's going to be able to power a few other pedals. So we're going to combine some pedals. We're going to do a demo for you guys get to hear all the stuff I'm talking about. So you'll get to hear this. I'll probably demo this too, because I think this Governor, I don't know. I never really got to hear it. I fixed it tonight, and I heard it through my little pea shooter test amp. So you can look forward. I'm going to probably have a video where I'm jabber jawing talking about that Thunderbird. The Thunderbird, it's another Runoff Groove circuit. That's their Marshall in a box, and it's incredible. That may very well be the best sounding distortion box I've ever heard in my life. And I've done a lot of comparing distortion boxes to find what I really love. And I think that might be the one. So, whereas I have this really great sounding reverb, you can detect the theme here. I'm probably going to be doing that, going to put together a great sounding little pedal board or whatever it may be. You know what other pedal I like a lot? The Digitech Bad Monkey. They say that it's a lot like a tube screamer, but it has a bass control. And I don't have a tube screamer. That's something I've got to rectify that. To be honest with you, for Father's Day, my birthday, or Christmas, I'm going to ask for a K-Line Pure Sky, I think it is. There's a $22 clone of a Timmy, because I want to get a Timmy. I want to have a Nobel's ODR 1, which I'll probably have to build. I want a Timmy. I want a Klon. And then see, that leaves a tube screamer. I'll probably just build myself a tube screamer. So once, and then I can, I can feel it out. As it is of now, going through all my stuff and A-Bing them and testing them and listening to them, the king, the one that I really, really love for guitar is the ZVX Show, for just that little bit, like switching in between humbuckers and singles coils. It's got this glassy thing, man. Once you get past noon, it is so unique. The ZVX super hard on. And then the other one that I really like is the Clark Gainster. I think that's the best overdrive in the world. I really do. The one that I have is a Hoochie Mama, and that uses huge carbon comp resistors and paper and oil capacitors. It's basically old tube amp parts, and that's why it's called the Hoochie Mama. So if you're an overdrive freak, if that's your thing, if you like, I like overdrive pedals and I like high gain distortions. I'm not a fuzz guy. I've got fuzz pedals, and ultimately, I would love to build myself a real pedal board and have a germanium fuzz on it, along with an a couple of overdrives and then a high gain dirt pedal. I love the MT2. I love the Metal Zone. I've got a Boss, or it's a Digitech DF7 distortion factory, and it has a model for the Metal Zone on there, which has you can set the frequency for the mid range, and I scoop the mid a little bit. Oh man, it sounds really good. That's the best sounding distortion on that pedal, if you ask me. So we all have our tastes, and I'm still looking for a high gain distortion that beats that. And I don't know. There's the G2, G4, G3, those rev pedals. I've been looking at those. I've been looking at what's the other one? So I built an Angry Charlie and I hate it. I don't know if I did something wrong. I built a Benson preamp. I don't know if I did something wrong. That's a piece of garbage. And then I built the Friedman, Dirty Shirley, which everyone was doing backflips about. I can't stand it. So again, I don't know if I did something wrong, but I built the Wampler triple rack. I really don't like that. And again, I should probably sell some of this stuff. I really should. But the one that I'm really interested in is the diesel VH4. That's the one that I should probably build. There's like the Sir Riot. I don't know. I think that Rev, the insane high gain Rev pedal, that would probably be the one that I need to get. It's just like, I hear these demos for these pedals, and then I'll build a clone, and it just sounds completely different. So more than likely that's user error, and again, with me getting these cheap parts. So as time goes on, we learn. And with a device like the new XMG30, I have this multi-effector that just sounds incredible. It's one little box. I can program it with my mouse, and it blows away all my pedals. Blows them away. This thing just sounds phenomenal. And you don't need an amp with it. It's kind of like doing what I'm doing is like pissing into a fan. You know what I mean? There's no good reason to do it, and there's no good outcome. It's like it's all up here, and it's like worrying about what other guitarists are going to think of me. Like, they're going to think less of me because I got a new XMG30. If I had a big analog pedal board, I could say analog and tube, then all of a sudden I'm legitimate. And that's messed up. That's emperors, no clothes. That's cuckoo talk. So I've always been from the school of, I live in an apartment. Starting out with this stuff, I had to hide my music from my mom. So I had a headphone system that was for shooting a gun. And then I took headphone drivers and put them in that. And that would seal up on my head so I could turn the thing up and you couldn't hear it. Like I could take the system off and put it on my leg and you couldn't hear it when I had the Walkman turned up on 10. And the reason for that was because if my mom heard me listening to Pink Floyd or Frank Zappa when I was, 15, I would have been in trouble and she would have confiscated my tapes and, that would have been it. She used to throw my tapes in the river. She threw I have Roger Waters. My first concert was Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, July 28th, 1984 at the Rosemont Horizon. I saw Eric Clapton playing guitar for Roger Waters. Clapton played the first 2 weeks of the East Coast leg of the tour, and I was lucky enough to see that. And I got a t-shirt and a tour book, and my mom found that stuff hidden, and it disappeared. So I've always come from this like apartment headphone, and that's why you're running a multi-effector just was natural to me, And this doing this, I built this amp and now I got to do a demo and I'm making pedals and spend all this money and build all this stuff to get tones that I can already very easily get is kind of the reason that hasn't happened. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I build a high gain distortion. I build a bunch of overdrives, figure out which is the best one. And at some point, maybe I can route those along with, like, use the effects loop in the MG30 and then get some different timbres. But how different is it really going to be? How long am I going to be using the MG30 till the next one comes out in 2 years when I decide to upgrade and they come out with something unbelievable in that price range or whatever? So it's all kind of a balancing act, and really with gear, there's that gear acquisition syndrome. That's a real thing, and I get affected by that too. I watch this stuff, and like I was telling you, I would love to build the rev pedal. I would love to, and then there's these other ones that I built that are regrets. I regret that I built the fucking Dirty Shirley and the stupid. What's that guy? That smarmy guy, Josh Scott, the Angry Charlie. I don't know why Boss collaborated with him and made that into a pedal. If you think that, I don't know. I guess I must be really particular about my guitar tone. That's the only way I can understand it, because that farty kind of, I guess that's tube tone is. Nasty, farty, no sustain, just crap tone, crappy distortion. And I listened to, there's a show that I ran into, it was a public access show called The Trouble Is With Your Set, and it was something like that, and I found all these old bands from the 80s, they had filmed them. The guitar tone back in the 80s for local bands, the guitar tones were horrific. Like nobody had good distortion sound. It was all like so unbelievably bad. And I think that's really par for the course. They're like guys that have good tone versus guys that have shit tone. There's a lot more guys that struggle with it than guys that have it down. And thanks to the internet, things are a lot better. But for me, the best way to go about it has always been the other way, the wrong way of using multi-effects. That's been the way that I do it. And when I listen to the stuff that I've recorded, going back to when I was using pedals and using analog and using tape and tubes and all that stuff, there's no comparison. The stuff I'm doing now smokes it. It sounds so much better. The timbres of the guitars are way infinitely better, and then the quality of the recordings are better. So that whole thing about analog and tube and tape, if that's what gets your dick hard, you're in the wrong place. All right, you guys, thanks for joining me on this one. I'll talk to you soon. Keep warm. Hug your pets, give them a treat, and peace.